Hi, welcome to Rose Yoga Tapping into Heart Courage. Today, I want to talk about art and creativity as a healing modality. So, I invited my podcast mentor and coach, Jennifer Dragonette. She is also an emotional freedom technique practitioner, yoga teacher, and a therapeutic art coach, and a wonderful, fun, bright light that I'm so excited to meet a sister after my own heart. And today we want to explore how art came into our life and the potency of creativity and diving into that. And we are also excited that we have connected to create an online program before week one, Art of Embodiment. So we're going to share about our personal stories today. Welcome, Jennifer, and please feel free to introduce yourself. What are some titles that you like to go by? And how did art find you in your life?
Ooh, all right. Well, we'll start with, I'm Jennifer, Jen, anything but Jenny. I will respond to. And titles, I've kind of thrown titles away and been introducing myself as a land mermaid connector of humans because I don't know why. It just came out one day on a podcast and we title ourselves and I think that puts us in the box and starts to kill that creativity, which I think happens a lot in this world. And for art, I have always been creative. The times of my life where I'm not creative are the lowest parts of my life. It's definitely when I stop getting creative, it's time to go inward and check in with, you know, what's truly going on in my life at that moment, because I think creativity is like life force. And when we squash it with everything else, it just stops. Therapeutic art came into my life, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago. I had this beautiful practitioner. I was in one of those really low spots, not checking in, praying at night to not wake up. Like, if there's nothing more, please let this be my last breath. And it got dark enough to being where I didn't feel I was worthy of the oxygen in the air. And I thought it was better served for someone else. So I found a practitioner who sat down with me and brought a box of crayons, like good old fashioned Crayola crayons, and we explored things. She had me spin around on the floor, beat on the floor, close my eyes, open my eyes, and just pick colors. So I closed my eyes and she's like, draw your connection to spirit. I drew what I thought was this beautiful connection. It was a white crayon. And in that moment, I knew that there was something special with how art and the unseeing mind of art can really unlock what's inside.
And where did you go from there? So you had someone facilitating it, but how did you, like this discovery, how did you harness this relationship? Like, oh, this is kind of an important thing to check out or follow.
Well, after days of crying, we'll just, because it always starts with the breakdown, right? We have to break down, we have to unbuild to rebuild. And I realized in that moment that I thought I was coming forward as a very spiritual person, as someone who was very connected to this planet, connected to source energy. And I realized it was in my mind only. It was not that anyone else could see because I was so afraid of what other people would think. So I, again, just kept taking to paper, allowing myself to express. And then I realized in that moment I could start creating with my eyes closed. I could allow myself to be messy. And every single time I allowed myself to sit there and really take the time to be with your feelings and emotions while being creative, it allowed me to see things beyond what my mind could tell me. And I think that most people who use creativity, whether you're doodling on the side of a page or you're, you know, making a sand castle, you can look at that time and see the emotion that was behind whatever that is that you created in that moment. And I realized the direct connection between I had lost my passion. I went to school for art. I was, one of the award-winning photographers at my school that I think my art's still on the wall 20 years later because I won awards. But I had lost all of that because I shut that down because society told me to get a degree, do the things. And I realized going through this unpacking that I needed to be creative in my life. And I birthed this thing called Art of Release. Actually, at first it was called Blob to Masterpiece. And yeah, the rest is kind of history. I've just now every time I need to do anything in my life or business and I'm stuck, I close my eyes and I let it be expressed without my overthinking, people pleasing mind.
And so after you were an award winning or got awards for your photography, did you have continuity with it or did you abandon it for other endeavors? Like what happened?
So I had moved away from home. I got sick. I got some pretty crazy news that ended up not being the case. And I stopped. I dropped out of college for creative arts and photography. And I came back to California. And yeah, I was like, I'm never going to make it as an artist. So I might as well do something functional. So 12, or I guess it was 11 more years of college later, I have a master's degree in business, marketing, minor in finance, and just plugging away doing the thing. So it became a moment that I made a choice to try to fit in a box, which we all should learn to color outside the box because those boxes are crazy.
Absolutely. That word has been a constant like theme right now or symbol, like it keeps coming up. Like I went on Mount Shasta yesterday, beautiful fresh snow everywhere. I went on this hike and made an earth grid, and then I see a piece of trash and I pick it up and it's literally from a box, like the lip of a box, and it says box on it. And I'm like, I can't get like, what is the message right now, universe, that you keep pointing out the box? Like I was going to the front door listening to a YouTube and they were like, and you just need to get out of the box. And in that moment where she says box, I open the door and there's a huge box in front of me and I pick it up and then the woman says box, box, box again. Like I'm just so curious. I feel like we're right in time of just like really revealing that it's time to break open the box, color outside the lines. So, yeah, share more about how you then created, like what was your intention for other people to create the Art of Release?
The intention was that it was such a simple tool that anyone can do, anyone can use, that I just knew I couldn't keep it inside. There was this excitement inside me like nothing else that I've ever done in my life. And I had so many cool experiences as I did this, from career people who couldn't figure out their next steps to I got to work with a bunch of children that had social anxiety and that didn't like to get dirty and didn't like the feel. So we did it with finger paints. I took away paints. We did it on Zoom because it was during the crazy time where we weren't allowed to meet in person. And I took away like the boundaries and the safety confinements because we get stuck in these again, the boxes of our limiting beliefs where when we step out, there's that fear. And the beautiful things that came out of breaking through those boundaries, like getting a call from one of the moms that's like, my daughter's never gone outside and gotten dirty before, and she's in the dirt planting flowers with me. It was like, and it came from being creative and seeing something different, having them explain to me what they're seeing in their blind artwork. Because you're painting blind, you're creating blindly, you're reaching for things, grabbing things, putting things on pages, moving your hand around intuitively. There will always be a message in the mess.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Can you share some other results from some of the
Oh,
people you
I
work
think
with, or
one of
even
my
your
other
own?
favorite. Oh, there's just so many. There's so many. I think one of my favorites was because I work with a lot of business owners. So one lady was really, really stuck and she didn't like to be messy. So we grabbed credit cards, old credit card for smearing and a box and a couple of other things. We used not traditional tools. And as she looked back at this, she realized that she had painted all dark colors around this whole page. She had grabbed a bunch of colors and it was like navy blue, forest green, black, dark gray. And then she had one little tiny blob of yellow that ended up in the corner. And she had, not thinking mind, grabbed that yellow from the side with her, I think it was her credit card, and scraped it all the way across the page. So it was like this light being coming through this darkness. And she's like, that's the leader I need to be. And she was able to rework her story to be the leader in her company and let go of a lot of the standards that were there and forge her own path. And now she's working towards almost towards a cruise in her business because she's in network marketing. So it's like having that story and her come back to me as she's made these pivots. It's still on her wall because it's a reminder for her to shine her light because she's the path leader.
That's
And there's
really
there's
phenomenal.
so many cool stories.
And you can't make that up,
Mm-mm.
like that reveals itself like that. That is like the mystery co-creating and forming like there's no accident.
Uh-uh.
And
And it's just any story can go like that.
yeah. And so after you did the art of release, what did you do next? Did you start exploring other methods, modalities? Let's hear about some things that really stretched you.
So I got scared. When it started being successful, I got scared. So what do we do when we get scared? We either face it or put it on the back burner and we pivot, right? Pivot queen. I pivoted and went into finding other ways to express yourself, which came through voice. But it's been a challenge. I love sharing your voice. I love sharing your story. I think it's so important, but it's always felt like there's this piece that's missing. So inside like my masterminds and when I have one-on-one calls, I'll do this exercise with people because I know that it brings out the answers and that creativity in because I think that regardless of what we're doing in life, again, the creativity is that life force that makes it fun. So when you asked me a couple weeks ago to let's partner on something, I was like, thank you, universe. Like I had just closed a door of something and I felt empty. And it was so exciting to birth something again that had this creative drive. Because again, no matter what you're doing, whether it's relationships, business, career, finances, creativity is like I feel like it's your inner compass, that internal fire. Yeah, we can talk about the internal fire of like the solar plexus, but it just got me back into that body piece instead of being so in mind, so disconnected through strategy, masculine. It immediately brought me back in. And I think you need that blend of flow and you need that blend of strategy and whatever you're doing in life, whether that's taking care of your health, like you got to be able to intuitively check in or it's just never going to work.
Yeah, and how does your art then inform you?
Oh, my art just tells me so many things. We'll take the other day. I was having a really funky morning. Those mornings you wake up and you're just like, I always hear that song that's like, yeah, odds are stacked against you. You better get back in bed. It was one of those mornings. So I took out some of because I love using acrylics, and I just put them on paper. It was all really muted, dark colors. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I sat with it for a minute and I was like, okay, Now what? And I let that come through my day. And I was like, oh, so I ended up cutting ties and things with some of the things that I was doing. And by the end of the day, when I redid, because I always try to like open my day and close my day when I'm having those days with art, I brought in more colors and it was bright pinks and yellows. And it was the shift in my mood. So sometimes just being able to recognize this is the pattern I'm stuck in helped me shift that focus.
Well, that's incredible that you have that discipline too, or that agreement with yourself that you go and revisit and like open and close it. I mean, that's already knowing that you're working with something and a commitment to that. So high respect for that, because that could be the least important thing, right? When we're in a rut or in a funky mood. So how could you, what would you suggest to people that are also don't have art experience and want to, like, how do they create that muscle to actually engage with the art, to really take that extra step to engage?
Ooh. Well, first, you don't have to be perfect. Not every time that I'm in one of those moods. Let's just put that out there. Like, it's never going to be perfect. We are humans, we are a work in progress. And one of the steps, honestly, is getting outside. Like, if you can't do anything else, get outside. I love being outside. If you can be outside barefoot, I know that, depending on when you're listening to this, it might not be feasible to put your feet in the ground on the ground barefoot, but I highly recommend that just because I think nature is like the ultimate artist. And if you can take time to just connect and see things for what they are, maybe go, and if you're a person who power walks, take a few minutes of your power walk to exercise, quote unquote, and slow down and just be mindful. Look for something new. Look for a flower that may have popped up. How many petals are on it? What's the color like? And this starts to expand out to everything. And that it, for me, it's opened up my world creatively through art, but also may open up the world through when I drive. I've made the same drive to go see my horse for the last 10 years. But now when I drive over there, I'm mesmerized by the hill and the way the light hits the grass. And sometimes like the cows are standing in the perfect silhouette. And it's like, I am absolutely mesmerized by this because I've trained my mind to not just avoid everything, to be in this moment while I'm driving, while I'm walking. And you can do this at a power walk too, but I just take a breath and actually see what's around you. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful, to just in the mundane, the thing that we know, to find new things and be in that allowance. Yeah, and what it's making me think of like you taking that time to be in a funk and then still turn to art. It's really showing a curiosity toward ourselves rather than projecting it on the day. Oh, today's a bad day. Oh yeah, I should just say, but we have this all or nothing kind of programming, right? But to actually just like, let's check out what's in here, and just allowing the muddled colors, no beauty, no perfection. And are you doing that with your eyes closed?
With the art, yes, that's for me, that's the most therapeutic way to use art, because if not, I'm working on my perfectionism. And as soon as I see what I'm creating, my mind immediately tells me, like, here's the story that's for it. Where if I don't let my eyes see it, I don't get to tell the story of that piece until I actually see what's created. And that's for me where it actually starts to help me unfold some of the stuff that I know there's something wrong, but I don't know what the awareness is. As soon as you see that piece, you're like, oh, there's the awareness. Oh, look, that looks like a thorn. Oh, that looks like
Mhm.
a fiery ball of poop. I don't know.
So when you're moving it around, you're not, I mean, this is like, this concept is blowing my mind when you're like, oh yeah, I can do art, no, but do it with your eyes closed. Like, that has never even come into my realm of possibilities. And that's why I just like giggle all the time when you tell me you close your eyes. Like, do you blindfold yourself, or are you just, so you sit now, you close your eyes, and and with acrylics, like how are you like picking them out with your eyes closed?
So it's really it's a messy, fun process. You can do it with crayons, you can do it with pencils, you can do it with anything. I like acrylics because I like to be messy. I've learned to embrace the mess. And yeah, it's why originally it was called Blob to Masterpiece. Was what you would do is you would close your eyes. I would ask a question to whoever it was. So I'm normally asking myself questions. I'm a questioner by nature. And you intuitively reach for a color and you squeeze that paint out onto your page. You have no idea how big your blob is that you've put on there, how small, if it's even come out, like no clue. And then I ask another question and you pick another color for that question. And at that point, we can either open our eyes, look at the colors. So we start to think about, like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, I see how this is. And then we close our eyes to move that around. And we ask ourselves, it's all about asking yourself the questions for what you need the answers to, or moving through something. So after that, like I told you about, white on white, I had a crayon, beautiful picture on a white page that you couldn't see. There's my spirituality. Okay. So what was the moment that came up from that? So I closed my eyes and I started painting and I started allowing my strokes to just be. This was after the person left. And I turned it into something that was more me and kept asking questions. And it was like, I thought I had drawn a person, and then I drew this person. I pivoted my canvas because I felt like it needed to shift. And then I drew this, what I call it, my big rock. Like I was squished by this big rock is what it looked like. Cause you could see the person underneath that was like all smushed into this color blob that looked like a rock. And I was like, oh, I remember the moment that happened.
Wow. And when you say that it's to masterpiece, is there a moment where you actually then just add to it with your eyes open or embellish it, or it's more like that you get your own personal reading reflected back at you?
So it can go either way. It can definitely go either way. If we're working through something, I'm working through something, and I feel like, oh, look, I can change this to make it into something. I have a painting on my wall that is like, it was red and gold with a little bit of brown. And then I painted this white thing in the middle. To me, it looked like a person. So I put hair on it. I gave it a little bit of rounded butt shape. And, I was just, because I knew it needed to be that. But when you look at it, sometimes all you need is the answer and then you throw it away.
Beautiful. So it's almost like the art of mandala making. You make it and then you rake it, like the non-attachment.
Yeah.
Unless you enjoy that. I mean, I think when we have such cathartic experiences, oftentimes we end up having a real love for that painting, and it might not look good to anyone else, but it signifies something to you, right? And then I see you have some art on the wall. That's a beautiful reflection and reminder for us. So for people who haven't really used creativity as for personal growth, are there any other suggestions of ways to explore themselves, to begin, to have the courage to just begin?
I think that's it, is you just have to be okay with beginning. You just have to be okay with the messy middle. You just have to see what expectations you've put on yourself and ask yourself, are these really important? What would happen if I allowed this creativity? Where can I add a little bit more laughter? Because I feel that creativity and play kind of go hand in hand. When you get more creative, the play seems to come up, at least for me. And if you can't be creative right away, find a way to play.
And how do you use it, like with inspiration and joy? Like, do you ever decide to do things with your eyes open and do different projects?
I do. To be honest, eyes open for me is a lot harder, but it also brings a bigger reflection for me, because at that moment, then it's, why am I trying to be perfect? Why am I trying to put this in the box? Why am I doing this? And you realize that when I go through these, I realize that, hey, there was somebody who bought, I think it was like a banana stapled to a canvas and then paint splattered on it, and they paid $100,000 for it. And I'm like, art is in the eye of the seer, and it's all around us. Look at the patterns that Mother Earth gives to us. The patterns in snow, in sand. I was sitting there the other day and just being inspired because as the waves were coming in and out from the ocean, it had made these like ripples through the sand, and it was gorgeous. And I was like, oh, I can create that. So I took a picture of it, and then I started creating ripples, that same wave, in seeing art. Like I saw it as I was painting it.
Wow, it's funny when you were saying shapes in nature, I was visualizing how the shore leaves the different marks. And I love that. I was seeing that right when you were saying that. Um, so tell me more about like what do you have, like a particular story that really like blew your mind, where you really had a change? I totally, just to back up, I totally resonate with you about the judgment and the perfectionist. Like it's almost like I could be so wound up and tight trying to do something, but it's like, I don't know how to do this. I don't want to do it. And all facing all the resistance, like, why are you putting yourself through something you don't know how to do? But yet it's like you just begin, and then you have a little more courage and a little more courage. And then you're like, oh, that worked out. Oh, that didn't work out. But now I could see it's something different. And so you're like working with our own, at beginner's mind, right? Do you have an example of something that blew your mind recently?
Oh, recently. It's just every time I do, I guess, I don't know. This is a hard one. Recently, I've been really stuck because I've been rebranding. So, one of my shows that I have, I rebrand every year. That's just what I do. And I could not figure out for the life of me, like, what am I rebranding this to? How's it going to look? How's it going to feel? So I sat with it, and the image that I had in my mind, I took out my 250 colored pencils, laid them all over the floor, and I sat with a meditation. I picked colors, and it was what I saw in my mind, but my eyes were open or closed. They weren't open. So it was like, it was confirmation. And it just keeps confirming to me over and over again to pay attention. Pay attention to the beauty around you. Pay attention to those internal nudges. Pay attention to what catches your eye in nature. There's something there when you allow yourself to see and then let go.
The letting go, and that kind of leads us into your inspiration of having held the container for the Art of Release. And now that we're joining for the Art of Embodiment, what do you feel like people are going to be surprised by?
It's really, I think the most surprising thing is what's holding you back, what's keeping you from being yourself. I feel like in any of these containers, especially when you're surrounded by people who are, wanting to expand, wanting to know self more, wanting to go inside body, you're going to be surprised at what you learn. You're going to be surprised at how insignificant the things are that are keeping you in the box, like coloring inside the lines. And all of a sudden, there's just this, I think the biggest thing is you'll find this new found excitement for everything you're putting out in the world, no matter if that's dinner on a plate or how you're interacting with nature or what you're putting on a page to create, art, writing, whatever it looks like to you. I think that it's really the magic of being in your body and being able to express that in a safe way.
Mhm.
and just discovering new parts of yourself by shedding the parts that aren't serving you.
Yeah. And as you make space like that in that way, through a new unknown avenue, it's like you're making more space for your genius, for the gifts that are already innate to you to flow. And just to bring, it does like bring the life force back in places that were stagnant. And so that's why I love that we so connect around this and want to create that container for others. Um, yeah, who do you feel like this is for?
I really feel like it's anybody who, oh, I don't want to say anybody because, I'm all about like, let's niche down, but really anybody who feels stuck, who just doesn't feel that passion for anything in their life, whether that's, like I said, in the kitchen, in their business, in their relationships, in their life purpose, in knowing their gifts. Anyone who's really in that stuck spot, like maybe you're having a midlife crisis or whatever it is, art and being able to experience something like this can really be like a reset button. Like so many of us, like think about in the morning, if you turned off your alarm clock, if it was like an actual reset button. I think art is that reset button.
That's a really beautiful way to box it in, to frame it. Um, like what comes to mind too is like when you said midlife crisis, people, that can be a very pricey thing for people, right? Investing in something new or getting a new home or total new makeover. But art is like accessible. You could be homebound. It doesn't cost, it's not a big financial investment to try to go on a new path of discovery, of self-discovery. And it is like an amazing form of self-love because I feel like it's the closest thing to facing, or like the most immediate way to face your own self-judgment, because that's your biggest resistant or resistor in that factor, right? And it shows us or exposes to us who we're dealing with all the time anyway. So it's kind of like having a date with your own judge and jury and being like, yo, let's create some peace here, let me lay this all out. And, you don't get to you can be here, but, your voice doesn't really count, but it's more like that exposing all of our own inner voices and bringing more acceptance to it in the reflection that's coming out, and and then learning to value that reflection, that it's actually, giving you your own diagnosis and it's free. So I love the fact that it's an economical way to reinvent yourself or to ask for guidance.
And fun,
And
because talk therapy and all those other things can just, I mean, you can go down rabbit holes for years. And I feel like being creative and using art, and especially if you combine it with like some tapping, get into the body, kind of move through those things, I think the combination of the two can really, I don't want to say magically like magic wand flip the switch, but it really can.
yeah,
Magic wand flip the switch.
yeah, and it might be like a hardcore, hard ceremony to go through what you're going through, like fire walking, but you get to the other side and that's when the delight, you know what I mean? That's where you realize there is fun to be had, for me at least, of conquering that self-judgment and then stepping into the zone of delight, and really, and then having almost like that parental pride, and then being your own inner parent to be like, hey, good job, like you can do this. So it's kind of like baby steps. And I find like that anytime I have those breakthroughs, it's like an accelerator for all the other things I do, or just birth like wild cards of things I never even knew I would be interested in. Like I started making flower essences and products and different things, or I was just making prints of my photography, which, I'm an avid photographer. And when I had all the prints out, I saw them as an oracle card deck. And then suddenly I started painting an original deck. like which I wouldn't be normally so resistant to because I think I'm not good at art, but it was like one thing informs the other, which kind of gives you as a springboard to another thing to dive into this unknown and be like, well, maybe precisely because I'm not like a great fine artist, am I the vehicle because it's coming out of more of a naivete of a very, you know, from that childlike place, you know? And we don't get to judge children. So I think it's just an amazing way to heal our own inner critic. And that way it affects all other areas of our life. Like, it's okay, you know, you're doing the best you can under the circumstances. So any final thoughts that you want our listeners to know about facing their fears in this way?
I think one of the things that you said really like hits home is like come at it with a curious mind, you know, and know that it doesn't have to be perfect out the gate. There is a message in your mess. There is hope. There is permission to be yourself, no matter how unique and weird and abstract it is. You know, all art is appreciated, and you are a masterpiece in your human form on this planet.
That's the perfect recap there, or motivation right there, and validation. Thank you so much for chatting with me today, Jen, and I look so forward to hosting this container, hopefully many times.
It's going to be amazing. You should join us.
Yeah, check out the Art of Embodiment link in the show notes. And go out there and try new things, even if you just go out in nature and make a nature mandala out of leaves and sticks you find, you know, there's no limits. And that's what I love. Like, hey, starting blindfolded, like anything can become a creative experience, you know, redecorating your house, moving things around, putting food on your plate differently.
Yeah. And just take a little step.
All right. Thank you so much. And I can't wait to create together.
Thank
Bye.
you.